Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the FM Channel podcast. My name is Claudio Rojas. I'm one of the co-owners and senior recruiters at Alex Young Recruitment. Today I'm joined by Tod Harrison, who is the CEO for Flowright Services. Welcome to the show, Tod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries, thank you. So just as a reminder to anybody that hasn't tuned in before, basically doing these podcasts in order to interview different FM professionals from the industry, different levels, from different backgrounds, just in order to hear their story of how they got into FM, what they like about the industry, maybe what they don't like, and hopefully with a bit of inspiring other people within the industry. So we'll crack on. Tod, so could you just, introduce yourself a little bit to what you do and who you do it for currently?
Sure. Yeah, I like the word FM professional, so it's nice to hear. So thank you for that.
That's all right.
I've been called a lot worse. Now, my background, I'm currently the CEO of Flowright. Just about to exit. In November the 3rd is my last day after a successful. We sold the business successfully in December, and I've done a structured handover. So I'll be leaving. And I'm also the non-executive chairman for Newton's Group Limited, which is a small start-up FM company, as well as doing modular housing. So we do a lot of modular build and for social housing. So my time is split, and I'm looking to support other companies and ventures out in the FM world, really.
Great stuff. So let's go back to the beginning. How did you get in? What is your background? How did you get into the industry?
FM. I think, like most of us, by mistake. I think. Traditional story. Left school with no exams and the stuff. And interesting, my whole family were in newspapers. So my whole family were working for the Daily Mirror and the News of the World. And I had an option to go in to work for the Daily Mirror at the time, or do something else. And I chose to do something else, which was quite lucky the way the newspaper industry went at the time. So
absolutely,
yeah. It had gone within about a year after the option. So I joined the London Electricity Board to do an electrical apprenticeship. So I did 4-year electrical apprenticeship, and I always tell the story. Then we come out the London Electricity Board, and as it was in those days, you left to do your own thing after your apprenticeship. So I went and worked over Canary Wharf, self-employed, doing what they would call projects and installation work. And I remember it was Christmas Eve. I was on the roof connecting electrical extract fans, and it was. I remember being I was pretty young, about 21, 22, and I looked across the roof, and there was an old guy there who was 50. He's not so old now; he's the same age as me would be. But I looked at him, and he was shaking. He was physically shaking on the roof. I said to him, "Look, go downstairs, it's warm." And I went home that day and said to my wife, "I can't do electrical install. I need to get into what's called a warmer environment." And then ended up, I want to get indoors and work in warmer. So I ended up becoming a maintenance electrician for Johnson Controls at the time. By the February, I was into that, and then I just worked my way through various options. I was lucky enough I did 10 years at Johnson Controls, which is obviously now CBRE. From the time, and I worked my way up from the maintenance electrician all the way up to running what they called their Six Sigma black belts, Lean Six Sigma and process improvements, and went from there really. And then the one thing, and I think this is really important about my view of the podcast, is I got a mentor. So I had someone in the industry at the time, a guy called Ulf Muller, runs my FM. So a fantastic guy. He went to me once, said, "Tod," he called me an idiot. He said, "Tod, you're an idiot," in a big German accent. And I said, "Why?" He said, "Look, you're obviously got a little bit about you, you're a bit more intelligent. There's some stuff that you can do." And he took me off to college, wrote me a letter, and he sponsored me and mentored me to do a degree in FM.
Wow.
Fantastic. And that's why I'm so passionate about mentoring and supporting the FM industry. We'll probably come on to that. So really key. So he mentored and coached me. I went on to then do my masters. And then went into various jobs, become the MD of Optimum. We've got tremendous success there. We grew that from 11 to 35 million under my sort of tenure. And went off and got in the venture capitalist world. So I tend to support private equity and VCs looking at businesses to go in and structure to bring growth to, and then obviously look to sell them back out to the open market, which is what we just did with Flowright. Flowright was an air conditioning refrigeration business for supporting FMs. and retail hospitality. And you know, as I said, we sold that in December. So that's really my background. But me getting into FM was I wanted to be warm. It's quite simple. I wanted to be indoors and. But the real turning point was when Ulf and the guys and you know, I started to get a mentor who showed me a bit of support, showed me a bit of value, and allowed me to have the confidence to work through the FM world, really. So probably the same as many people. You come into it with nothing. Yeah,
and I think that's what's interesting about the industry. I've interviewed so many people since being in recruitment, and then since doing this podcast, I've spoken to people who started out on the tools. They might have started out in post room or as an administrator, but they've all applied themselves, realised that actually this industry I can make my own way and carve my own career out here if I just kind of put it in. But I think having a mentor is not many have said they've had a mentor, and I think that is really important if you can get that.
No, look, we give it back to all the businesses I've been involved in, and you know, people say the same. We've always ensured that there is a structured mentoring and coaching program within them. It's not just about management. It will be taking engineers through the system. It will be taking contract administrators through the system. And we tend to get fixated on, I think, technical succession. You know, I think there's two routes in FM. One's a technical succession and one's a managerial succession. And we should be quite. We should be very supportive that these guys can go technical or managerial. So, you've got to give back. I know it's a cliche, but every business you have, it's all about the people. We know that we're all doing the same thing. All us guys, we're all doing the same stuff. It's just how we educate, support, and coach our people. And then I think how you then add technology into your service delivery now. The FM world has to start to innovate. It has to start to change. You know, we're all fighting the same contracts. We're all fighting the same margins. There's no value in it anymore. You've only got to look at the demise of some of the bigger names. So I think we have to educate people more, and I think we have to utilise technology more to deliver a service. It's the only way we're going to protect A, the industry, and B, your own personal business and its margins.
Well, I was going to talk to you about technology, actually. That was a topic that I've kind of I've come across quite a bit over the last few months since kind of the lockdown. I've been a bit more active on LinkedIn and reading articles and speaking to people about technology within the property world. And I think the general consensus or general message that I'm getting is that technology is moving in, it's there, it's available, but the FM industry probably isn't moving quick enough with the technology, or maybe not embracing it quick enough. What's your take on that?
No, I think it's spot on. I've always been this technology. Technology is a big word, and it's a sexy word, like added value in tenders and all of that stuff. They're all great words, but the technology that we talk about has fundamentally been available for many years. You know, it was developed in the military 70 years ago. In the 1970s and stuff like that. So the technology we're trying to utilise in FM is not new technology. I think the bigger challenge of technology, I think there's two things. I think if we don't introduce technology and make our service delivery more efficient, it'd be the race to the bottom of the margins, and none of us will survive that game. And we'll all, you know, the industry has a strange reputation anyway, doesn't it, in various quarters? But if we don't improve our service delivery and utilise technology, it would get even worse. So I think that's one. I think we have to use it to become more efficient and to be sustainable. Two, I think that the reason technology is not utilised in the FM, and this is very much a Tod's view, is that the culture and behaviour of the FM world doesn't embrace it. Now, I think there's two reasons. I'm still looking at the same tenders being sent out that are SFG 20 with the same specification. You know, a lot of these consultants are changing the name at the top and sending the same specifications out. So I'm still looking at specifications that are 20 years old, and we're all pricing them the same. And I don't think that the industry, from a diversity point of view, an education point of view, inviting people from outside of the FM world into the FM world because they see it with different eyes and different views, will embrace technology in the way that it should do. And I think unless we change the mix of people running FM, we change the diversity as a wider word. You know, it's run by the same people fundamentally who have moved from one provider to another. They all do 2 or 3 years. You know, they all move from 2 or 3 years, and then off they go. That's what you do for a living. To be fair, you place them. So you need that churn. This is what you need.
That's
what
true.
You need.
That is true.
But you know, I think that there has to be a fundamental shift. The technology, I think, is there. I think it's been there for a while, and we can deliver services in many different ways. But I think it's the culture and behaviour that has to change and adapt, and that's harder to change in this industry. It's hard to change in any industry, but I think as technology becomes more available for generations that sit below me, you know, my children, you know, they embrace technology. To them, it's, you know, this is what we do for a living. You know, look at us all. We're all on Zoom now. We're all on Teams. We certainly weren't on that before COVID. No. So, you know, technology has been forced on us, and I think that change will now be permanent because it's been embedded over how long we've been in bloody lockdown, 6-7 months. So, the FM world has to change its culture and behaviour, and for that to happen, it has to change its thought processes. It goes right back to the procurement of tender processes. It goes right back to the consultants who are specifying services. Then you need a bit of longevity in people's jobs, because to introduce technology into some of these services, it takes a little bit of an investment up front. You're going to get your payback in years, probably 2 and 3 of a contract. Now, some service providers are risk averse and won't invest in the front end because, you know, the industry is constantly churning and changing. So long-winded way of saying, I think we have to change behaviour before we talk about the technology itself.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. And like you say, it's kind of, maybe the larger organisations have got the cash to maybe do it, but maybe it's harder to do within a bigger organisation because people don't like change. And when you're trying to change a large company or the ethos or how it operates, does that mean that you think that the change will come from the rise of the smaller companies like the SMEs and stuff?
Yeah, I think it does, because I think you know, they're more agile, they're more flexible, they're more entrepreneurial. I think the one thing that COVID will do, unfortunately, is there'll be a lot of companies that will struggle in the next sort of year. But I think on the good side of that, if there is a good side of this scenario, is that it will create some opportunities for the more agile, dynamic type industries. I think technology leads with that. And I think another thing that's driving how it's going to change is the skill sets within the industry. And if we talk pure engineer, I'm a hard FM. I think that's the right term, hard FM, you know, mechanical and electrically led. There is undoubtedly a skill shortage. There's no two ways about it. And we struggle to get good engineers, but what I've really noticed is project management and contract management is getting harder and harder to find. You know, there tends to be a churn of engineers. You can tend to find some churn of engineers, is my view. But when you get management and project management, they're really difficult to find. You know, and so I think it will come from the smaller companies. I think they're not afraid to take a chance. They're not. I don't want to get involved with the big boys who are bidding these multiple site jobs and all over the things. I want £500,000 in the middle of London. You know, I can get to know the end user. I could get to know my client. I can understand what his true needs are. I'm not dictated by a massive procurement program, and you know, I can go to him directly and you know, talk about change. If you're talking about doing a job for Lloyds Bank, or you know, and it's got 300-400 branches, I think it's bloody hard to talk about technology and how you implement it because it's so vast. And I think I think the management of that account, you know, you take ISS or something like that, they're so disparate with their management structure, and everyone's got their own P&Ls in their own little bundles. You know, technology is never going to be embedded because it will never be championed by one of those individuals, because they're all driven by their P&L. Somebody's got to stand up and take a risk to say, you know what, P&L is important, but you know, I'm talking about long-term sustainable P&L and long-term profitability. For that to happen, I'm going to invest in some technology over the next couple of years, and the smaller agile companies can do that. You know, we can do that. We're investing in technology now. You know, we're investing in technology. We're looking at different ways of doing stuff. We're looking at ways of delivering services. Because you know, we won't compete with ISS. I'm not picking on ISS, whoever watches this podcast, but it's just
a name, one of the larger players out there. Oh, you've gone. Hello. Hang on a minute. There we go. I've just unpaused it, but yeah, you disappeared for a moment there.
Oh,
You were just about to say that you weren't picking on ISS, just the
no, just the bigger sized organisations out there, and I think they have different challenges. They have different margin pressures, they have different revenue challenges. Where the smaller agile players can be a bit more dynamic and a bit more supportive of technology.
Cool.
I always go back to the customer. I always remember I did a lot of data center stuff. So my specialist businesses was always in critical environments and data centers. I won't go to it. We were working for a supplier who had a tier 4 data center. So had all the resilience engineering wise built into the data center. And we bid the job and we ended up, I think, with about 36 engineers. And I said to him, why have you got any engineers in here? The resilience is built in the infrastructure. The technology is here to monitor this plant 24/7.
Yeah.
Why don't you have 4 or 5 engineers? And his view, and I was saying, look, I can protect my margin. I'm going to charge you more for them. I'm going to still protect my margin. I won't have the same revenue, but I'll have a higher margin. He was like, no, I want 36 guys here because it's, I feel safer. I was like, in some environments, engineers introduce risk to the environment itself. And that was driven by a customer. So it goes back to, you got to be careful where you introduce technology. It has to be the right customer fit as well as the right supplier fit. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you guys are introducing some technology within your business. What kind of technology are you introducing? Can you say, what's out there? Because there might be people listening thinking, well, what's out there? What are we kind of, where are we using a trick kind of thing?
Again, we're not Apple, we're not Google, we're not reinventing, we're not Tesla and reinventing the wheels. We're just using some basic technologies out there to look at services. So we're looking at our buildings that we have and we're going, how can we deliver the service in a different way? So can we use vibration analysis? Can we use oil sampling? Can we use different water treatment type options? And we're just saying to the customer, instead of going to that asset 4 times a year, we'll only go twice a year, but we'll be monitoring it every single month or every single day of its life cycle. We have, sitting behind that, we have a compliance software. So it pushes the information out. So, so the information goes into the portal. If there's any challenge with it, it will push the information out to the end user. So we're using a combination of monitoring techniques, but I think it's different is we're then directly pushing that information out to the customer. So we're not filtering it before to protect ourselves and risk. We're saying to our customers, we're going to be very open with what we send you. These are the alerts of when we receive them at the same time. We're monitoring the temperatures, we're monitoring the energy profiles. As I say, I think when we talk about technology in FM, I think people try and make it too sexy.
Yeah.
We just fix stuff. And sometimes we get fixated and we tend to try and big it up. We just fix buildings and we fix electrical and mechanical stuff. So we're utilizing a lot of what I would call, and to me this is important, a lot of proven technology. We're just molding it with our maintenance structures. We're just, we're changing the maintenance philosophies. We're not going 4 times a year. We're going twice. And sometimes instead of going 4 times a year, we're going every single month because it's a risk-based piece of equipment. And then when the feeds come into our platform, which we own, at Newton's Group, we own that platform. We've decided to go out and design and bespoke our own platform.
Awesome.
There's lots out there, but you know what? I want to make it customer-centric and I want to make it right. Is that information then gets pushed out. So the customer sees it at the same time as us. He understands that issue. So, what does that, if you allow the customer to see it at the same time as you, it creates a massive amount of trust and visibility. Then you're starting to embed technology because it's trusted and it's visible. If you just have technology in the back and you filter the technology to the end user, well, he doesn't really trust it after a while because he thinks you're turning the dials up and down. So that goes back to the culture and behavior a little bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I guess kind of changing the client's mindset a little bit, just a bit at a time, really. Instead of saying, we've got this amazing bit of tech, we're going to use this. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, what does it do? It's a case of just, like you say, instead of like a visit every month, we're going to do it twice a year or 4 times a year. It's going to be
don't frighten the customer.
Little tweaks here and
there.
Look,
and I think that's important because we talk about technology and people suddenly say we talk about software and we talk about IPs and interfaces. I think you can really turn some people off because we're in an FM industry. We're not in a software industry. We're not in a technology-based industry. So it goes back to what I said. It's the language and the application of the technology that is going to drive it through. Interestingly, on the one I'm talking about, we reduced the customer's cost, but we increased our own margin. I'm very upfront with the customer. We said, look, we're going to reduce your cost base because the philosophy is different.
Yeah.
And we're going to increase our margin. You know, we want some of that saving as well. You know, we're a partnership, and they were very keen on that. And, you know, that goes back to having the right customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so no, exciting stuff. But I'm very clear on technology. It's the utilization and embedding of the technology rather than, I go back, we're not Tesla. Let's not pretend we are. Let's not make it so sexy. Let's not make it so sexy that people don't want to see it.
Yeah, I think you're right. You can kind of get caught up in it, maybe start to scare people off with the word technology. Because like you say, technology is this word that everything's fantastic, but then you start thinking Tesla, cars driving by themselves, things doing things by themselves.
We're not ready for
talking about AI. It's like, hang on a minute, are we going to get rid of all the engineers? And who's going to be doing this? I think there's like preconceptions, you know. And
I think the FM, you know, all of us as well. We're all, you know, let's be realistic. In this environment, we're all frightened of change. You know, and you are threatening. You know, everyone talks about technology and how it changes people's worlds, but it can reduce people's employment and it can reduce people's job numbers. And I think it's another barrier to it. And you know, are you going to implement something that means instead of having 10 security guards, you may only have 4 instead of 36 engineers? What I talked about, you might have 10 highly skilled engineers who are really highly skilled, rather than that. You know, and when you start talking about that stuff, I don't think the industry is ready for that. And that's, to me, is about using technology in the right way for the right application. And let's not talk about it in terms of space rockets, because it's not.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been clear, you know, simplify it and make it, tell the customer what he, you know, give the customer what he needs to make his business more functional, and so he can focus on his core business and not worry about all the stuff that's going on around the edges. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Similar to the modular housing, you know, we're building the modular houses. You know, we build the physical box in the factory. We do all the mechanical and electrical services in the factories. The other trades come in and put the tilers in, and we lift them up, and then we take them out to site, and we plug them together on a building site. So we are building the houses within the factory. We've introduced some technology there that's more about time management, more about efficiencies, but we've modularized. You know, technology can come in different ways. Instead of the guys wiring fuse boards up, we wire the fuse boards up in another factory, and they get sent to us, and they screw it on the wall, and they just plug a cable underneath it now. Nobody's opening the fuse board or wiring it up anymore. They're all pre-wired. Yeah. And when the cables come in, we're just plugging them in the top. You know, we're saving 6 hours per fuse board. Yeah. You know, and then you're talking efficiencies and the modules. So the applications for technology can be the design of a product rather than software. So technology can be utilized on design of products as well as software, which I think we miss a little bit, to be fair. We tend to talk about, FM talks about technology as a monitoring type tool, proactive monitoring. It doesn't talk about the design of the product, because if you design the risk out of the product, do you really need to monitor it? So where do you put the technology in the design type stuff? So I think sometimes we're always on the other side, and if we can influence design and we can influence architects, and I'm being very utopia-ish here, but if we can start to influence, you know, the architects, the designers, and we can get the FM world and the mechanical, and it can get more involved in that world, well, you can build all this into the infrastructure already, and then it becomes very powerful going forward.
Absolutely.
And it's been talked about for years, isn't it? We just don't do it.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Can I just ask you a quick question about, because I think we touched on it before, changing the subject slightly. You mentioned about there's always a churn within kind of the finding maintenance engineers, guys, you know, guys on the ground. I mean, ever since I've been doing recruitment, I put a post out there today about there's a skill shortage, and you know, there's a big gap in the market, and it's been talked about so much, and everyone sort of says, yeah, there is. But what, in your opinion, can that gap ever be sort of got rid of or closed down? Because it does seem like a lot of service providers offer apprenticeship schemes, which is fantastic. Yeah. But it always seems like there's always a gap. There's always a lack of good, for example, mechanical engineers. When we recruit for mechanical guys, the better guys are all kind of in their late 40s to sort of 70. Do you know what I mean? They're and then
no, look.
So what's your take on that, on the kind of the skills?
No, I think it's really interesting, and as you say, it's not a new problem. We're all still talking about it in the same sense. I think there's a couple of things. I think there's two things from a business perspective. It's the engagement to stop the churn once you've got them. and then I'll go into how I think we need to educate the industry, is the engagement piece. Now, we'll talk about when we, my previous business of just exiting was Flowright. We have 100 mobile engineers, and they're all over the UK. So it's a national business. What we had when we joined was 100 engineers who were loyal to their van, or they were loyal to their static contract, or they were loyal to the building they were working in. The engagement piece of, are they loyal to Flowright or to Johnson Controls or CBRE or to Optima? Who are they loyal to their company, or are they loyal to the environment they work in? I think when they are comfortable in just purely the environment they work in, so their van or the static site, you're always going to get churn because they go down the road for 50p a pound more. So what I don't think we don't do as well is the engagement piece with that engineer, and it can be on a static site. So we introduced stuff at Flowright. We did family days. We went for a drink every quarter. We introduced mentoring, coaching, ILM stuff, and we did a big piece about how we engage with those engineers. And because we engage with engineers and we do a lot of work with them, which was different. And I think a lot of FM providers missed that bit. They employ a guy and they stick him down a static site. Do you know what? The area manager turns up once a week and he's left. So does he work for the company that employed him, or is he working for the building he's in, or is he in his van? So I think the employer engagement bit in engineering, there's a lot of work to be done. Yeah, I think there's a lot of I also do think there's a lot of quick wins if you do, and that's where HR can come in. I had a fantastic HR lady working for me, who's been with me nigh on 10 years, and she understands the value of engaging with the engineers. And do you know what? There is a commercial element to it. Every time I don't have to pay you a fee, I'm saving, X amount of money. Your fees are dearer than most days. Obviously not. You would have stopped. I'd have said that to any of you lot. Everyone would have known me by now. I would have said that. But, look, there's a commercial element to that engagement piece. So to me, it was always an investment in the business. Give them the best vans, give them the best site tools, give them the best uniforms. Make sure you're taking them out every quarter for a drink, your basic stuff. Make sure that you appreciate their families to do a family day every year. Make sure you're buying Christmas hampers and you've got mentoring. So I think that's how you stop the churn. The wider point of attracting people in the industry is probably a bigger challenge. Yeah. And I think it comes way back at education stages. I listened to a few of your other podcasts, and nobody left school wanting to be in facilities management, really. Not what I can see. Most of us sort of stumbled in a strange world, but it can provide a fantastic career. Yeah. It can provide a real long, steady career because, there's always going to be a need for it. The pay structure within the industry is pretty damn good for a lot of uneducated, for people like me who come out of school with no education, and it gives you a pathway to educate yourself and then do okay. So it's quite attractive for, I would say, a lot of people. We don't do anything in schools and universities. Mm-hmm. I know there's lots of different organisations that represent the FM world. And I'm not saying it's anything negative, are they strong enough? Are they advertising? Are they marketing in the right areas to attract the new generation into FM? I think that's key. So I think there needs to be a whole education marketing piece where we educate school leavers, university leavers and graduates and start to introduce that and to really show a career highlight. I think the apprentices that we get, when we did this, when I was the MD of Optimum, we started taking a lot of apprentices in, and I said, look, we're not going to give them a normal apprenticeship. They're going to come in and get a far better apprenticeship than they would elsewhere. So we're going to educate them more. We're going to give them more modules. They're going to be more experienced to the business. So we wanted to create a really well-rounded apprentice rather than get someone in for a couple of years and then send them out the other end. But we struggled at times to get apprentices. We struggled at times to attract apprentices, and it doesn't seem, everyone wants to be a YouTuber or an influencer. My girls tell me they want to be an influencer. Yeah. So I think there's a real big education piece. I also think that us people who've been in the industry a while have a real obligation to mentor and coach. So when you get the good ones in your business, you've got to give them a pathway and a career structure. You can't be this short-term thing. Do you know what? We'll only have this contract for 3 years. I'm not investing in it. You as an individual has to step out of that and go, do you know what? Yes, we may only have the contract for 3 years because the cycle is what it is in our world sometimes. But I'm going to invest in that engineer or that individual engineer, that contract support, that finance lady, the technical guys, and I'm going to give them some support, and I'm going to provide a network, because they'll always remember I did that. Yeah. And then you create people passing it on. And I think us older individuals who have been in the industry quite a few years have a real obligation to pick up the younger generation that's coming in and really start to educate and support them. If we don't do that, we'll lose them anyway. They'll all slide away and go into different careers. And, why can't you, when you walk into FM, say, right, are you technically minded or are you managerial minded? We should at that point with the good ones say, right, if you are technically minded, here's your career path. Can take you all the way to a chartered engineer if that's where you want to go. But if you're managerial wise, here's the route that you would go through: supervision, contract management, area management, account management. And if you're good enough, you can go for an MD and a CEO. Those frameworks, there's some out there, that BIFM have frameworks and stuff, but they've got to be embedded in the industry. People go off and do some education, but it's not practically supported through the businesses. And so, long-winded way of saying, I think individually people have got to step up. Can't keep blaming the industry as a whole. Can't keep blaming the industry as a whole. I had a mentor who picked me up and supported me. That's got nothing to do with the industry. That was someone within the industry who took an interest. So I think as individually, we've all got to collectively, as individuals, we've got to go, do you know what? We've got some good people here. Let's support them. Let's give them the benefit of it, because they will naturally grow within the industry anyway, and you will solve some of the problems that we're talking about.
No, agree. No, I think it's, I massively agree with what you're saying. And a lot of there's every time, if I've met somebody who has had a mentor or who did an old school apprenticeship, they always bring it up. They always say it. I learned from an amazing lead engineer back in the day when lead engineers were I did 1 day a week college, 4-year apprenticeship, but the engineer that I had, he was brilliant. He did this, he did that. Or on the flip side, it's been FM. Someone's been taking me under the wing. They always mention it, and that person will then hopefully go on to. You'd expect them to pass it on, I guess, because that's what keeps the industry going, I guess. But it's very, very interesting that you said that.
And it's also and the dynamic of and when we want the dynamic of the industry has to change. What we have is a lot of engineers who pick up the phone. So if there's an issue with a generator, they pick up a phone to a generator company. If there's an issue with EPS, they pick up the phone to a UPS company. If there's an issue with fire alarms, they pick up the fire alarm contractor. So in my time, some of the engineers in some of these environments are just becoming very well-paid secretaries in something. I've got an issue with my fire alarm. Do you know what? I'm going to phone the fire alarm company. I've got an issue with my water treatment. I'm going to phone. So we should be educating those individuals so they can do the first line response. Then they get a bit more engaged in the building. Then they get a bit more engaged in the industry. I know what I was like as an engineer. I went in the managerial route because I wasn't a very good engineer. I've always been quite honest about it. But
fair enough.
You know what? In our days, we try to fix stuff, and I know that's a bit of a cliche. Now, with the businesses I've run, 9 times out of 10, these guys say we've got a problem, they pick the phone up. The products have changed. It's all replaceable. It's not working. We replace it. It's not. It would drive me mad as an individual. So I think there needs to be more education so these guys and ladies can actually fix stuff and actually get involved with it, rather than phone up Johnny, put a new one in. Phone up, put a new one in. Where's the value in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Tod, listen, it's been a real pleasure speaking to you. We'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time, listen, and
yours.
Well, hopefully we'll catch up again soon. And but it's been a pleasure. And
thank you.
Thanks for your time
as well.
Take care.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.